Captain Joshua Tucker stood trial, accused of unleashing horrific genetically engineered human warbeasts on the galaxy. Hundreds of alien eyes glared at the bound human as Vortis, the reptilian Orion ambassador, slammed his clawed fist on the podium. "Look at this human filth. His kind's twisted bioweapons slaughtered millions." Vortis snarled, neck frills flaring. "Earth must pay for breaking galactic law. They engineered war beasts, half-human abominations bred only for death, then set them loose on us all." "We didn't make war beasts to start a war," Captain Tucker growled back, energy cuffs sizzling. "Enhanced humans were Earth's only defense against your uplift programs and occupation fleets. We had a right to—" "Please," Vortis roared, silencing Tucker. "This council session will review the classified warbeast files. We'll expose the depths of mankind's crimes and vote on Earth's punishment." Angry shouts erupted from the council members. Some demanded Earth's destruction, others called for eternal slavery. All wanted blood. Tucker gritted his teeth, a single thought pounding in his skull. The warbeasts could save humanity, or doom us all. And everything depended on the choice he'd made, back when this nightmare began. The scene shifted, back to that fateful mission years ago when the galaxy truly learned to fear humanity's warbeasts. Captain Joshua Tucker crept through dense alien underbrush, plasma rifle clutched tight. Angry purple vines clawed at the humans' skin-tight stealth suits as Joshua's unit pushed deeper behind Orion lines. Their target, a research facility cooking up some new bioweapon to unleash on mankind's colonies. Intel was sparse, just the location and scattered comm intercepts about Project Doomsday. But if the Orions were willing to gene-splice a virus or bacteria, it was bad news. The warbeasts couldn't let that happen. Joshua's gene-modded senses flared, picking up movement. He signaled the squad, fist raised. Battle-hardened Marines melted into the shadows, crouching behind tree trunks and boulders. Not a second later, a dozen power-armored Orion guards stomped out, plasma carbines sweeping the perimeter. "Contact front," Joshua snarled into the mind link as an Orion rifle swung his way. The jungle exploded with plasma fire and inhuman roars. Joshua rolled, rifle snapping up to put a blue-white bolt through an Orion's skull. Two more fell, center mass shots burning fist-sized holes in their armor. Warbeasts were fast little shits. To his left, Sergeant Mike Bull Tanner tackled an Orion, superhuman muscles bulging as he tore the alien apart with his bare hands. Bull was a damn tank, gene-modded for raw brutality. Joshua was just glad the big man was on his side. The firefight was over in seconds, a dozen Orion corpses sizzling in the undergrowth. Joshua's warbeasts emerged unscathed. Mostly. "Caught some plasma in the shoulder," Bull grunted, slapping a pain patch on blackened skin. "Still functional." Joshua wiped blood from a gash on his forehead, the wound already sealing as his healing factor kicked in. "On me," he growled. "That facility's close. Stay sharp and check corners." As the humans stalked closer, Joshua couldn't shake the feeling they were walking into a trap. The Galactic Council chamber erupts into chaos. Shouts of outrage and horror fill the air. The assembled species look at the footage of the Orion research facility, unable to believe what their eyes are showing them. The monstrous creatures in the tanks are the stuff of nightmares. Vortis snarls and slams his fist on the podium. "This is a trick. The humans have fabricated this footage to distract from their own crimes. Project Doomsday was a defensive measure to protect the Orion hegemony from mankind's aggression and—" Joshua laughs harshly. "Oh, really? Then why were you making these abominations before the first warbeast was even born? You're not fooling anyone, Vortis. The Orions have been playing God for decades, violating every law of nature in the pursuit of power." He turns to the rest of the council. "Don't you see? The Orions started this arms race. They pushed us to the brink. The warbeasts were Earth's response to a threat we couldn't ignore anymore." The chamber buzzes with heated discussion. Some council members still glare at Joshua with hatred, but others look more uncertain now. A few even shoot accusing looks at Vortis and the Orion delegation. Joshua feels a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he can make them understand. Maybe he can show them that humanity isn't the real monster here. But Vortis isn't done fighting. The Orion ambassador leans forward, eyes burning with malice. None of this justifies your crimes, Tucker. Even if what you say is true, even if we have bent the rules in the past, that doesn't excuse the sheer scale of your atrocities. You and your warbeasts have slaughtered millions. You've turned entire worlds into charnel houses. We did what we had to, Joshua roars, energy cuffs flaring bright as he surges to his feet. We fought to survive, to protect our people from annihilation. What would you have done in our place? What would any species do when faced with an existential threat? We made hard choices, yes, we sacrificed our very humanity to keep Earth safe, and we'd do it all again in a heartbeat. The captain stares out at the shocked faces of the council members, breathing hard. He knows his outburst likely cost him any sympathy he might have gained, but he doesn't care anymore. All that matters is making them see the truth. You want to punish us? You want to make humanity suffer for our sins? Fine. But you damn well better judge the Orions by the same standard, because from where I'm standing, their hands are just as filthy as ours. The only difference is, we did it to survive, they did it for power, and I know which one I consider the greater evil. Joshua sits back down heavily, suddenly exhausted. He's said his piece. Now it's up to the council to decide the fate of two species. One thing is certain, though. The galaxy will never be the same after this day. Vortis seems to sense the shift in the room. He looks around nervously, neck frills twitching. When he speaks again, there's a note of desperation in his voice. The human lies, he hisses. He seeks to mislead you with false equivalence and misdirection. We cannot let the crimes of Earth go unpunished, no matter what half-truths this Warbeast scum spews. I move for an immediate vote on the complete eradication of... But the Orion's words are cut off by a sudden commotion at the chamber doors. Every head turns to see a squad of heavily armed guards, led by a tall figure in ornate robes. It's the Galactic Council's Chief Inquisitor, Zaxos Vul. The Inquisitor strides into the room, his expression grim. He raises a clawed hand for silence. Honored councillors, I bring grave news. We have uncovered evidence of a wider Orion conspiracy, one that goes far beyond the development of illegal bioweapons. Ambassador Vortis is to be placed under immediate arrest, pending a full investigation into... No, Vortis shrieks. In a blur of motion, the Orion leaps from his seat, a hidden plasma pistol suddenly in his hand. There's a flash of blinding light, a hiss of superheated air. And then... Vortis's pistol flashed, plasma bolts searing through the air. But Joshua Tucker had already moved. Genetically enhanced muscles coiling, the freed captain hurled himself sideways, dodging death by millimeters. Around the council chamber, screams and chaos erupted. Zaxos Vul roared orders to his guards, but Joshua had no time to wait for backup. Sprinting full tilt, he leaped over the council bench, tackling Vortis in a blur of speed. The Orion ambassador screeched, talons scrabbling for purchase, as the two tumbled to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Joshua's fist hammered into scaly flesh, once, twice, 3 times. Bone crunched under his enhanced strength. Vortis hissed in pain, lashing out blindly. Razor claws raked Joshua's face, drawing blood. Rolling apart, both combatants surged to their feet, glaring murder. But before they could clash again, a shockwave rocked the chamber. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. "Councillors, we are under attack," Zaxos Vul shouted over the din. "Orion ships have entered Earth orbit. They're launching fighters." Joshua felt his blood run cold. After everything that had happened, Vortis's fleet was still assaulting his homeworld. Revenge burned hot in his veins. Ignoring the Inquisitor's barked commands, he sprinted for the door, one goal consuming his mind: get to a ship and make the Orions pay. Minutes later, Joshua was in the cockpit of a sleek Warbeast fighter, G-forces slamming him back as he rocketed up through the atmosphere. The void of space swallowed his tiny craft, distant stars glittering cold in the endless black. But Joshua had no eyes for their beauty. His gaze locked onto the seething swarm of ships silhouetted against the blue marble of Earth. Hundreds of Orion raiders, destroyers, and cruisers, all bristling with weapons. At the heart of the armada loomed a massive dreadnought, spines and spikes jutting from its hull like some nightmarish leviathan. Joshua's lip curled. Vortis's flagship, the hub of the invasion. Cold certainty crystallized in his gut. If humanity was to have any chance, that ship had to die. Plasma lanced through the void as the battle raged, Earth's defender ships charging to meet the Orion advance. Outnumbered and outgunned, the human vessels fought with desperate ferocity, but it was a losing battle. Joshua watched a frigate erupt into flames, its hull shredding like tissue. Gritting his teeth, the Warbeast captain threw his fighter into a corkscrew dive, plasma cannons spitting blue-white death. 2 Orion raiders exploded, shrapnel pinging off Joshua's shields. A third jinked wildly, trying to evade, but Joshua's enhanced reflexes were faster. Sighting down the glowing reticle, he squeezed the trigger, reducing the enemy ship to molten slag. All around him, Joshua's Warbeast squadron wreaked havoc, their gene-modded skills turning the tide. Mike Bull Tanner roared over the comms, his guns shredding an Orion destroyer's hull. Valerie Dumont danced her fighter through a wall of flak, missiles leaping from her wings to gut a heavy cruiser. One by one the enemy ships fell, but not quickly enough. Earth burned below, continents obscured by nuclear fire as the Orions bombarded Joshua's homeworld. Smoke stained the atmosphere grey, millions perishing with each salvo. Joshua felt white-hot rage surge through his veins. Alien scum. They'd pay for every life snuffed out, every city razed, and he knew just where to start. "Warbeasts on me!" he snarled into the mind link, wrenching his fighter into a steep climb. "We're taking the flagship!" Reckless, some might say. Suicide. But if Joshua had learned one thing in all his years of gene-modded warfare, it was that victory came to the bold, to those willing to sacrifice everything for one desperate chance at triumph. Engines screaming, Joshua hurled his ship at Vortis's dreadnought, the Warbeast squadron forming up on his wings. A hurricane of point defense fire ripped out to meet them, stitching lines of destruction through the void. Joshua jinked and rolled, his hull shuddering as near misses flayed his shields. Gripping the stick with white knuckles, he wove a corkscrew path through the barrage, trusting to his enhanced reflexes. All around him, fighters dueled and died, plasma and debris flashing past his cockpit. Proximity alarms blared shrill warnings. Joshua ignored them all, his world narrowing to the looming dreadnought ahead. Closer now, close enough to see the whirls and spikes of its hull, the gaping maws of its hangar bays. Orion fighters boiled out like angry wasps, plasma lashing at the oncoming warbeasts. Joshua cursed, juking hard. To his left, Valerie's ship exploded, shredded by a lattice of cannon fire. Joshua snarled in grief and rage, finger tightening on the trigger. His guns hammered, pulse after pulse of blue-white fury. Orion fighters disintegrated under the onslaught, fireballs glittering against the night. Joshua flew through their ashes, his squadron blasting a path through the enemy screen. "Flagship dead ahead," Bull roared. "Popping shield cracker, now!" A salvo of crackling torpedoes leapt from the sergeant's launchers, corkscrewing wildly. They struck the dreadnought's shields in a blinding flare, electromagnetic pulses shorting out the energy barriers in a cascade of sparks. "Shields down," Joshua barked. "All fighters, attack pattern Omega. Punch a hole, then launch boarding pods. We'll gut this ugly bitch from the inside out." Afterburners flaring, the Warbeasts screamed towards the exposed hull, weapons hammering at armor and sensor nodes. Geysers of molten metal erupted into the void. Something critical broke deep in the dreadnought's belly. A shudder ran through its frame, guns falling silent. Seizing the opening, Joshua wrenched his fighter into a tight turn, lining up on a damaged hangar bay. The Warbeasts followed suit, a spear of deadly ships arrowing towards the flagship's heart. Point defense guns swiveled to meet them, but it was too little, too late. Joshua slammed the launch stud on his control stick. The pod kicked free of his fighter with a bang, his squadron doing the same. Fusion torches flaring, the boarding craft knifed into the hangar, emergency force field shattering on impact. Screeching and sparking, the pods skidded across the deck, hatches blasting open to disgorge their deadly cargo. Joshua leapt out, plasma rifle already spitting blue death. Orion warriors surged forward to meet the humans, a tide of scales and claws. Energy bolts crisscrossed the hangar, warriors screaming and dying on both sides. But the Warbeasts had surprise on their side and desperation. They would not be denied vengeance. Roaring in fury, Joshua charged into the fray, his squadmates at his side. One thought pounded in his mind, driving him on like a drumbeat. Find Vortis, kill Vortis, make him pay for every drop of blood spilled, every life shattered. The Orion ambassador's sick schemes ended here and now on the gore-slicked deck of his own ship. Emptying his rifle into a knot of enemies, Joshua drew his vibro-blades, the monomolecular edges humming. He lost himself in the rhythm of close-quarters killing, hacking and slashing, gene-modded muscles moving in a blur. Orion blood painted his armor crimson. A Saurian warrior lunged, spear stabbing for Joshua's heart. He parried the thrust and struck back, his blade shearing through the Orion's neck in a spray of arterial blood. Whirling, he kicked another foe in the chest, ribs shattering under his boot. A third slashed at him with a crackling glaive, the energy blade hissing as it rebounded off Joshua's gauntlet. Snarling, the Warbeast captain batted the weapon aside and buried his vibroblade in the Orion's skull. Scales and bone parted like soft butter. Wrenching his gore-slick blade free, Joshua scanned the chaos, searching for there. A flicker of movement, a swirl of familiar robes. Vortis trying to flee deeper into the ship. Lips peeling back from his teeth, Joshua gave chase, shoving past startled Orions. He was a blur of motion, a relentless predator pursuing wounded prey. Panicked, Vortis whirled to face his pursuer, talons flexing. The ambassador's eyes were wide, the stink of his fear filling the corridor. "Stay back," he screeched, leveling his pistol with a shaking hand. "I'll kill you, ape. I'll flay the flesh from your bones." Joshua didn't even slow. Juking sideways, he let the plasma bolt sizzle past his ear, then lunged. One lightning-fast grab snapped Vortis's wrist, the gun clattering to the deck. The other closed around the Orion's throat, slamming him against the bulkhead with enough force to dent metal. "You invaded my home," Joshua growled, his hand tightening. Vortis choked and thrashed, legs kicking weakly. "Slaughtered my people. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? Did you think Earth would just roll over and die?" The Orion's eyes bulged, his struggles growing feebler. Joshua leaned in close, his voice a low rasp. "This is for every human life you snuffed out, you scaly bastard. This is for my species." Muscles bunching, Joshua wrenched his arm to the side, ripping Vortis's head clean off in a welter of blood and gristle. The ambassador's corpse slumped to the deck, gore pulsing from its shredded neck. Joshua and his warbeasts blasted their way through the Orion dreadnought, plasma rifles spitting blue-white death. Alarms blared as the boarders advanced, leaving a trail of smoking corpses in their wake. Orion warriors surged to meet them, energy blades humming, but the gene-modded humans were unstoppable. They moved like quicksilver, enhanced reflexes letting them flow around clumsy attacks, respond with brutal efficiency. Bones cracked, flesh sizzled, alien screams echoed off steel bulkheads. Joshua led the charge, a snarling avatar of vengeance. His vibroblade flashed crimson as he hacked through Saurian foes, never breaking stride. Deeper into the ship they pushed, trading blood for ground. Every meter gained was one closer to Vortis to ending this. At last they reached the bridge, a great vaulted chamber bristling with consoles and screens. And there, standing before the viewports with a dozen elite guards, was Vortis himself. The Orion ambassador turned slowly, his eyes glittering with malice. "So the great Joshua Tucker, hero of Earth, you've come far, ape. But this is where you die." Joshua raised his blade, gore dripping from its edge. "You first, you scaly bastard." With a hiss, Vortis drew his own weapon, a crackling glaive. The guards fanned out to either side, hissing and snarling. For a moment, the two sides just stared at each other, poised on the brink. Then Joshua charged, a wordless roar bursting from his throat. Vortis lunged to meet him, glaive slashing down in a blur. Sparks flew as their blades clashed once, twice, 3 times. They traded a dizzying flurry of blows, moving faster than the eye could follow. Joshua felt his muscles burn, his heart thundering in his ears. Vortis was good, as fast and strong as any warbeast. But Joshua was better. He'd been made better. Snarling, he parried a vicious cut and lashed out with a booted foot, slamming Vortis back. The ambassador staggered, his guard dropping for half a heartbeat, but it was enough. Joshua's vibroblade blurred, the monomolecular edge slicing through Vortis's chestplate to the flesh below. The Orion howled in pain, black blood spraying. Joshua pressed his advantage, hammering at Vortis's defenses, driving him back. Their blades flashed and wove, carving glowing after-images in the air. Around them, the bridge dissolved into chaos as warbeasts clashed with the Orion elite. Energy bolts stitched the bulkheads, alarms shrieking. But Joshua barely noticed. His world narrowed to the foe before him. Vortis was faltering now, each block a little slower, a little weaker. Joshua bared his teeth in a feral grin. Almost. Then his eyes fell on the device strapped to Vortis's chest, pulsing with sickly light. Joshua's blood ran cold. He knew that glow, that thrumming hum. A bioweapon, a God's damned plague bomb, primed and ready. Vortis saw his gaze, mandibles twitching in a vicious smile. Yes, ape, if I die, this ship dies with me, and your precious Earth too. My final vengeance. Joshua felt a rush of pure, icy hate. No, he wouldn't let it end like this, not after everything. Bellowing in rage, he hurled himself at Vortis inside the range of glaive and blade. They grappled, snarling, clawing. Joshua's fist hammered into the bomb again and again, desperate to break it, shut it down. Vortis shrieked and thrashed, talons raking Joshua's face, his arms. Pain seared through him, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. The bomb flickered, energy surging. He was so close, almost. A blinding flash, a roar that shook the ship. Joshua felt the explosion slam into him, hurl him back in a wash of searing agony. His world dissolved into fire and pain, a white-hot supernova devouring thought, sight, sound. Then darkness. Joshua swam back to consciousness slowly, his body a broken ruin. Every nerve screamed, his blood boiling in his veins. The bioweapon, he could feel it spreading through him like poison, tearing him apart from the inside. Blinking ash from his eyes, he looked around the shattered bridge. Vortis lay a few feet away, a blackened husk, dead. The bomb had taken him too. Small mercies. Joshua dragged himself to his feet, his ravaged body shrieking in protest. He saw his warbeasts staggering up, wounded but alive. They'd done it. Vortis was dead, his flagship gutted. The battle was won. But even as Joshua stood there swaying, he could feel his life ebbing away. The bioweapon had done its work, the plague ripping through him cell by cell. He'd known when he tackled Vortis, known it would likely end this way. Worth it to see Earth safe, to see the Orion fleet fleeing like whipped dogs, their leader broken at Joshua's feet, worth any price. His legs buckled, and Joshua slumped against a bulkhead, leaving a smear of blood. His vision was dimming, the world fading at the edges. So this was it. This was how a warbeast died. Not bad as endings went. He'd done his duty, served his people. Maybe now he could finally rest. As darkness claimed him, Joshua's lips twitched in a pained smile. The Orions would never threaten Earth again, he'd made sure of that. Let the politicians sort out the rest. The war was over, his war was over, and that was enough. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.